Hello, and welcome to the OP Conversation. I'm Steve Waltz.
And I'm Jeff Brogulski.
And Jeff, by popular demand, we're having a podcast with the Innovia Conversation hit, 5,000 downloads last year? And the number one podcast that we had since we've been doing this is with Master Sales Trainer from Sales Gravy, Brad Adams. So we got Brad back today. Hi, Brad.
Hey, how's it going? It's good to be on. Thank you for inviting me today. Love hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, so what are we talking about today, Steve?
You know, when we reached out to Brad, and a lot of things that we've been having internal discussions on is, we're getting a lot of questions on Chat GPT, on AI, and a lot of the conversations that we have too are more for the ERP system side of it. But what's really driving things, and Brad, most of our clients are ERP clients, and when I was talking with Tim and our marketing director, it's like, okay, why is this podcast that we did about sales the number one podcast? Not that because we know Brad's great, but the topic, it's really what are businesses and business for, right? To make revenue, to generate profit. And so I do think now we're kind of in the early stage of AI really helping companies sell more products. So we're excited to talk to Brad a little bit more about how he sees AI affecting his clients with Sales Gravy, and then really how we can help prepare people really for it to take advantage of it. So, we're pretty excited about that. So, Brad, I know that was a lot right there. When you heard AI 5 years ago to AI today, does it mean anything different to you?
Yeah, I think 5 years ago it was this thought and this idea, and today it's there, it's upon us, and so I think that we've got to be prepared. We've got to utilize it the right way. We've got to figure out how to be more efficient and more streamlined without losing that authenticity and that human to human touch, which is so important to a lot of sales organizations.
Nice. Yeah, it is. And so in the last year, I know you have a lot of clients. Have you noticed is it picking up on questions asking you about it? Hey, Brad, tell us about this, or do you see this replacing? The question I get is like automation helps replace people, right? To make more efficient. It's usually more on the finance side or operation side. Got a question about a month ago, first time ever. Is this going to replace salespeople? I'm like, oh, never had that question before. I mean, have you been getting that, or I mean, how? I'm kind of curious out there. What how do they see it? I know it's pretty early in the game.
Sure. I don't. My personal viewpoint. This is not Sales Gravy's. This is my personal viewpoint. It might be Sales Gravy's too. I don't see AI replacing salespeople. Now, I'm going to say that with a caveat. If you think about it on some level, it's already replaced salespeople. If you think about e-commerce, if you have, Amazon, for instance, is AI. It's e-commerce. It's a very low level, AI. But it keeps you from having to go to your big box store, or to your grocery store in town, or some of the mom and pop retailers. And so it did kind of replace a lot of people's buying habits, any kind of e-commerce out there. And so if you have a product that is really transactional and very much a me too, it's possible that AI could supplement or even replace a salesperson. But the more complex that you get with your product or solution, and the more your product is maybe not known and ubiquitous to the market, the more you need that human to human interaction. And so in those types of sales processes, I see AI being a useful tool, but not a replacement. I see it making salespeople better, and maybe taking away some of the administrative things that they do, or some of the some of the nuances, and I see that empowering them to do a better job so that they can connect with those human to human relationships and with that authenticity.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Jeff, I'll ask one more question, and I'll turn it over to Jeff. And I just remember from, my old days of doing sales training and working with, ride-alongs with people, that it was always like 33% of the salesperson's time is really spent selling. And where I can see AI going is what you were just kind of talking about. It can look at your sales process, right? It can interpret some of the data and tell you if you're being more efficient. And I'm trying to think of the top salesmen, your A players. What percentage are they selling? Is it over 50%? I don't know, but this is going to, I think, if used correctly, and there's as I was surfing the interweb looking for more data, there's not a lot, but there's some good articles about AI and selling. But I think that was kind of a message that I kept getting, is that it can really take the data that you have and help you refine your sales processes. But as you know, Brad, selling's emotion, right? People people don't like to be sold, they like to buy things, and it's a lot
Right.
of an emotion, even in enterprise deals. And it's still interesting to see that. So any comments on that before I turn it over to Jeff with his hard questions?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those hard questions. Maybe, maybe not. So 100%. In fact, Steve, that might even be kind of high. That number, 33%, might even be kind of high in some
Really?
organizations. I've worked with some organizations where they're spending less than 10% of the time selling, and they're just, pushing paper and doing admin, and it was an egregious abuse of sales. But you're exactly right. The more time that you spend prospecting and client facing, and whether that's on a video call like us, or whether it's in person, or even just a phone call, but the more time that you're engaging with the prospect, the more you sell. It's just a hard truth, and it can't be denied. And so if you're able to increase it from 30 to 35%, or 35 to 40%, through time management, or taking some of the long, laborious tasks off your plate, and streamlining it so that you can get in front of more people and have more conversations, 100% you're going to sell more, and you're going to be able to weed out some of those customers that aren't great fits for you. You're going to be able to provide more value, and you're going to be able to get the price that you should be able to get, and therefore create profit for your company. I'm going to plug a partner of ours that, just real quick, there's Chris Beal at Connect and Sell, has a great tool, and he uses a combination of AI and people. And the whole purpose of his tool is to get people to have more sales conversations. Because we all know, if you dial the phone, it's a low win probability. It works. It's never going away. But they essentially dial several people at the same time. They get somebody on the phone, and then they connect it with a person, and it 10x's the number of conversations that you're going to have in a day. And that's a great use of AI. Because the people that are prospecting and talking to more people are selling more things. So tools along the lines of that could get you talking to more people, and taking out some of that admin and things that you do in your day that aren't productive. I 100% think that those could be extremely useful to sales organizations.
Well, okay, then Steve said it's my turn, so I'm going to take over. We have yet to, I don't know if we've mentioned Steve's favorite term yet of CRM, but so we'll continue without mentioning that. I'm going to say that one of the things I think that I've found in just this preparing for this podcast, the idea that will you type something in, like into Google, like will salespeople be replaced with AI? One of the reassuring points I found was that it was almost like a meme of this, but salespeople will never be replaced with AI, because that assumes that prospects know what they want, and are able to articulate that in a way that artificial intelligence can understand. And I think in our pre-conversation before the episode, we talked a little bit about the emotions of and being able, artificial intelligence being able to sense that. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence at this point in time, and being able to sense? You mentioned that that company that you were plugging, about how they can get the temperament of the call, but really, what I've learned from you over the last few years in terms of, the importance of an emotional connection. What do you think about AI in that space?
So it's a good question. And the two things I think about that I just don't know if AI can replicate. And as I'm saying this, there's some people out there that are designing AI that are saying, "Hold my beer, watch me," right? And but I think that the thing that they're going to struggle to replicate is emotional intelligence and authenticity. And that's such a huge deal. People want to buy from people that are trusted advisors to them, that they feel that they can trust and they feel have some valuable advice. And like you said, they don't want to be sold; they want to buy. And it's a very nuanced process to lead people with questions, discovery, research, insights in a conversation to get them to the revelation. I'm making up words. The revelation that they do in fact have an issue that could in fact be solved and could in fact get them an outcome that they're not presently getting using what they're doing. And if AI can navigate that conversation, we've got bigger problems than just replacing salespeople. We've got maybe replacing humanity as a whole. And I just don't. I'd like to think that with the advancements that AI is experiencing, that at some point they're going to put it on a set of rails. So because if you replace humans, then what are we even doing anyway, right? Completely. And so, but I see. I'd like to tell kind of a quick and silly story, and I don't even know if this is a real story, but it might be a parable. It's something I saw on Facebook, but it's a story about the ship. And there is a ship that the engine wasn't working, and they hired multiple mechanic after multiple mechanic, and they couldn't get the engine working. And so they hired this mechanic that was a very seasoned mechanic. He had been doing this for years and years and years. He showed up with a toolbox. He walked down. He looked at it. He came back out. He grabbed a hammer. He walked back down into the engine room, and came back out and handed had got the ship running and handed the company a bill for $10,000. And they're like, "What? You spent like 10 minutes here and we're going to need an itemized bill." And so he scratched out what he did. And then he said, tapping the engine with a hammer, $2, knowing where to hit and how hard to hit, $9,998. And it's a silly story about the experience and kind of what you pay for when you're working with someone who actually knows what they're doing. And I just I see AI struggling to get there, but I see AI being a very, very useful tool to streamline a mechanic like that, so that he can tap more engines and bill more people. So I think if you think about AI as a tool rather than a replacement, then that's probably a better use of it, and that's probably where I see it fitting into the sales arena.
Yeah, that's a great story. When I look at what Microsoft has in our space for AI, there's tools that help developers code. There's and there is part of some sales assistance through they've got a Copilot product that tries to take information that's already entered, descriptions of items, and create marketing text from that. But then also there's and Steve knows this as well because they turned this on a few months ago for us, this Viva Sales, which is I think right to your point about AI helping, but not being a replacement. So it will Viva Sales will analyze your meetings. So a Teams meeting, it's looking at the transcript and analyzing and giving sentiment notes about the positive and negative, and then it will also, when it hears things like promising a follow-up, even though that's just done verbally, it will actually set reminders for you. So in that sense, it's really helpful to have a tool that, in case you didn't write it down in the meeting, captures those reminders for you. But the part of it that tries to summarize sentiment is just not act. Like I go to meetings that I didn't attend, like the sales meeting. I go back and check in the sentiment notes where it says there's a negative sentiment. They'll put a little red dot at that time in the meeting. I'm like, why is this? Why is this think it's negative? Like it's just someone saying, no, you didn't do anything wrong. So it's trying, but it's not quite there yet in the sales process.
So I was just on a call with one of my customers, and it might have been Viva Sales, frankly, but they were looking at this platform so that they could take the transcripts of their team and do a better job coaching. And it may have been that platform, but the tool was a really, really neat tool. And what you can do is you can program in keywords. For instance, I've been working with this client. They receive call-ins and they sell capital equipment. And one of the things I've been working with them is asking for the business at the end. They were sending quotes, let me know if I can help you. They weren't saying, shall I get this on order? Let me get this going for you. And just that one thing that they did gave them an immediate lift of about 4 or 5%. And we're talking millions and millions of dollars, about 4 or 5% in sales closing. And that's just month one. They're going to get better at it. Everybody's going to do it. But the challenge is you've got a team of 50 sales professionals that are talking on the phone all day, having all of these conversations. And as a leader, even though I only have 8 to 10 of those, imagine the burden of having to go back and listen to the recordings of those calls that are 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes sometimes to see if they asked for the business. Well, this tool allowed you to program keywords in it, like, let me, get this on order this, put an order together. Like you could do exact phrases, keyword searches, and then it's combing through all of that data to find those keyword searches. And then it can say green light, they did it, yellow light, they kind of did it, red light, they didn't do it, and it flags the conversation so that the leader can say, let me pull all the red conversations that the rep didn't ask, and let me see if I have some trends amongst my team. Is Mary doing it egregiously, and Nancy is doing it amazingly, and then I can identify where to coach, so I can spend more time coaching and less time listening and observing and try to find that needle in the haystack of where they did or didn't do it. So tools like that, they're brilliant. So if a leader can coach more calls and upskill more people in every single day, that team is going to get to excellence faster, and they're going to sell more stuff. Like you said, Steve, SMS, that's what we do, right?
That's right. Sell more stuff and
sell more stuff. I like Brad's version. It's a little cleaner.
It's the rated G version.
Yeah.
PG. Okay. Well, I've got one more question before I give it back to Steve.
Sure.
And I guess this would be from a perspective of maybe a sales leader in the organization, but what is because we've got thousands or hundreds or dozens of people like that listening to us, what would you at this point in time, I guess, how much should sales leaders be looking at AI as a tool? Is it I mean, are the people who aren't looking at it yet really missing the boat, or how important do you think at this time? Of course, like a week from now, it could be outdated because something amazing will happen. But how do you think? How important is it that sales organizations be looking at this now?
I think it's something that sales organizations should be looking into, but I don't think that you should buy it or access it or get it unless you could truly see the ROI of that particular tool. And here's the challenge. I work with companies that are very mature, that have been around for over 100 years. I work with startups and then everything in between. If a startup is investing in a lot of AI, but they don't even have their messaging or their buyer's journey figured out, then it's not going to matter. It's just going to be a tool that nobody's going to use, that's not going to help. If ultra high performers, the A++ players, if you're putting a roadblock in front of them to slow them down where they're already killing it and crushing quota and bringing revenue, then that's going to hurt the organization. I see these tools being best used on that middle of the pack group of salespeople. The people that are just falling short, yes, we can invest time in them, but at some point, maybe it's time to cut bait. And I don't know if a tool is going to help the people that are completely bombing it get to where they need to be, unless they're just starting, obviously, the new people. And so I would say tread lightly, be aware, be thinking about what your outcome would be from investing in a tool, and really feel like that you'll be able to get that outcome. If you have this AI tool that's identifying a bunch of conversations, but you're not willing to take those conversations and then coach the people, it's going to be a waste of money. So yes, keep an eye on it. But I don't believe that if you're not looking at it today or tomorrow that you're going to get left behind next week. We're not there yet. It's just like HubSpot, like you were talking about, CRM. It's like an ERP tool for a manufacturer. There's a lot of manufacturers out there that don't have ERP tools that are humming along quite nicely. There's a lot of sales teams that don't use CRM or haven't fully adopted it that are still doing well. And it's a tool that's got to make sense for your organization, and you've got to use it, and you've got to make sure it's providing an ROI for you. Long answer. Sorry.
Gotcha. No, that's a great answer, and I think it's you want to evaluate new technology in the same way that you make all of your business decisions, and it should be based around ROI. All right, Steve, I'm handing it back to you.
Yeah, that's great information. And what I presented to a Houston Microsoft group a couple weeks ago, and I kind of got involved. It was more of how to utilize the relationship management and ERP systems to sell more stuff. And I kind of went back and looked at the numbers of sales, and there was an article in the Wall Street Journal back in 2022, just recently, that it used to be about 4 years ago, 500,000 sales professional vacancy, open jobs, and now it's 750,000. It's 750,000 professional salespeople they're just open jobs. And the younger generation doesn't view sales as like, ooh, a great career. I mean, not many, our generation, not many people went to school to become a salesperson, right? You just kind of ended up in sales. Now they have sales programs, but as a company, as a sales leader, Brad, I'm sure you talk about the numbers of selling. 50% of salespeople only make one call back, right? Half the salespeople, actually now it's 66%. Half the salespeople, it might even be north of this, Brad, don't even ask for the sale, right? And then 80% of the sales are made between the 5th and the 12th sales engagement, sales call. And that's where I think as a sales leader, where AI and relationship management, you almost have to take a look at it, because if you're struggling to find, I told people, I said, if you have that A player that's out there peddling, calling, and taking care of the customers, and they're a person of excellence, I said, you need to go back and give them a hug, because they can get a job anywhere tomorrow, right?
Sure.
The B players, they're not quite there. They might be farmers versus hunters, but they're doing a good job, and they want to learn, but there's a majority of those in C players, right? They're just kind of there. And so I can see the AI as a sales leader. How can we automate things, take the data and put processes in? Because if you're not going to call the client back, like I got an email yesterday, it was 30 days to the date where the person came in and tried to rob me on putting 2 sliding doors in my house. It was so high, but the automated email basically wanted to follow up with me. And the guy never called me, whatever. So I just wonder if that was just an automatic setting in their system, right? But at least that did it versus missing that opportunity, because staying in front of the customer is important. So I think, Brad, you deal with these companies and the numbers of sales quite a bit, right? I can see, do you have, when you talk with your clients about, okay, how can we put in processes to have salespeople have a plan to follow up? How many conversations do you have around that?
So I'm going to share with you, this is kind of the answer you're looking for, and then I'm going to answer it directly. So I'm working with a company right now, and they have a coding academy where they teach people how to code. And the company is an awesome company. They've grown like crazy, and they put a lot of automated processes in place because they need to take the burden off their sales team to talk to people. If they talk to students, they enroll students. If they don't talk to students, they don't enroll students. It's just that simple. And so they put some texting in place that someone could come in, like they've got a brilliant marketing funnel, lots of great leads coming in, and then they put a text track in place where the texting automates, do you want to go ahead and book an appointment with somebody? Do you want to do this? And do you want to do that? And people are booking appointments 2 weeks out, and people are sort of not following the track that they provide for them. And what they found is that they've now gotten to about a 15 to 20% show rate on the appointments. About 80% of people are not showing up. And that's too high. That's too high. I've seen 50, 60, that's kind of acceptable depending on the industries. For me, it's much higher, but I have sort of conversations ahead of time. And so what I told them to do is I said, the moment a lead comes in, pick up the phone and call it and say, thank you for your interest, and engage with them right away. And then book a meeting that's near, not 2 weeks out. Time kills deals. And then after you book the meeting, ask them a couple qualification questions to make sure that they're actually looking for coding. A couple of people were looking for medical device or medical coding and things that's not their purview, so they could disqualify them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what we found by making that change is it immediately lifted it from 10% to over 50% show rate. What's the difference? The human-to-human connection. Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure that when we're inserting these processes and systems and things, that we don't take away the human connection. Now, if we have some processes in place to prompt our individual people, hey, you need to call this person, it's been a while, those are kind of already there. If you think about any CRM, they've got tasks, and those tasks give you a push. Those tasks give you a push notification. You need to do this follow-up task. You have overdue tasks. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some of that already in place. But at the end of the day, if they're not responding to it, then what has to happen? Does the manager automate a process with ugly, nasty grams to the person? Or does the manager go and schedule a meeting like this and say, hey, we need to have a conversation? So it's not going to replace that coaching. It's not going to replace the doing. But it might remind and prompt. It might have a little bit of lift. But at the end of the day, you've got to have that human-to-human connection, whether you're leading and coaching a team, whether you're working with somebody and bringing them on a buyer's journey, whatever that looks like, you can use it as a tool, but it's not going to replace those conversations and that human-to-human connection. If a person doesn't know why they should follow up with somebody, then they're probably not going to do it. If they see the value and they're going to make more money and make more commission, they're probably going to do it. AI is not going to tell them that. The leader's got to work that through with them. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Well, you did, and I think the message about AI is to our listeners is that it's not going to replace salespeople. CRM's not going to replace salespeople. They're tools. And for sales leadership, I think, how can we utilize these tools, which you're getting at? Because my mindset is, I think of like when I first heard of CRM 20 years ago, it was like, oh, Big Brother's watching, all this stuff. They're kind of, all these things can happen. Then I learned, oh, this reminded me to call somebody. Where as I've gotten older, I don't remember quite as good as when I was younger. And then you can embrace it and build it out, right? But the mindset of an A player is that 10x mindset, right? Pick up the phone and call. Send information, continue the conversation, lead, have the internal process. And I think where AI is going to benefit is it's going to show companies, look, all right, these folks here are doing this. AI's interpreted and said, if you do this, you have a higher close rate. You're going to get more calls, more meetings, whatever it is, and then try to basically improve your process for everybody else. Now, if everybody else can get on board, that's going to be a challenge forever, right? Because there's so much emotion involved in selling, and but I do say, you talked about the chat, like we have when you come to the Innovia website, a little box comes up, and so we're actually have in the last probably 4 or 5 months, Jeff, I don't know if you popped on, the questions have gotten better, right? We've redefined things based on response rate when people kind of digging in, continue that conversation. Mm-hmm. So that's where AI Viva Sales for us is really helping us. It's kind of telling you, yeah, that's kind of working. This is really working, or this will help you with it. So, but yeah, nothing replaces that human connection. People buy on emotion, and salespeople, No, it's interesting. I just remember a salesperson, I begged them to ask, like, did you ask the client if they're going to buy? And she just said, I can't. And I was like, what do you mean you can't? She was, it just showed you that everybody's afraid of that two-letter mean word, no. Because if they don't say no, Brad, right, it's an island of hope. Like, oh, they haven't said no. And we know it's what?
All right.
Right.
Exactly.
On that. But I think if you can see that, look, by having that process, other people are asking, it's an ask, it's a conversation, right? It can really refine that. So I know we're coming up on time. So tell us about maybe Sales Gravy, how you're, planning for AI conversations moving forward, or working with these smaller companies that are maybe like coming to you that are more startups, right? You said you have startups, you have these older companies that are maybe coming to you and say, hey, Brad, we're using these tools. We want to kind of get your take on, is this really worth the time? Are you seeing more of that? Or, I mean, how's it trending in the industry?
Well, I'm seeing more of that because I saw none of that a few years ago. So
Right.
it's not an everyday occurrence, though. But I've got a lot of clients, just like Inovia, that if you guys wanted recommendations and me to jump in on a meeting, hey, we're looking at exploring this. What are your thoughts? I talk to salespeople every day, and I work with a lot of sales organizations. So I'm happy to provide my opinion on that.
Yes.
But I would say the biggest thing, if you're a company and you're considering AI, how are you going to use it? Are you going to use it? And what is it going to accomplish for you? What's the ROI going to be? I don't think AI is at a point where you can take a company that's got a completely broken sales process and fix it. I think AI is at a point where if you got a company that has a good sales process, make it a little bit better, or keep people connected to the sales process a little bit better, like doing your steps and doing the known, tried and true things that you're doing. I think it's a great tool for leadership to observe and find opportunities to coach. And there's a lot of good out there, but it's not a magic, it's not a magic pill or a magic wand. It's not yet anyway. Maybe it will be someday. But it's a useful tool, just like the hammer and the guy that fixed the boat. He couldn't just like give the person the hammer and they could go take it and fix it. It needed his expertise and his wisdom to know where to hit and how hard to hit.
And that was a great story. And one of the things that always stuck out with the number of sales, that 90% of salespeople have never read a book on selling. Read a book. I mean, you got all this access, right? And when we engaged with Sales Gravy, originally, I remember the conversations like, we're too small, we can't afford them. And that wasn't true. That wasn't the case. Brad, we have a lot of companies out there that are maybe more SMB out there that they know they need help redefining their sales process in sales coaching. So if they were interested in engaging with Sales Gravy, maybe you can tell a little bit more about how that would work and how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So just this year, we've created LMS integration and Team Hub, and that is a enterprise quality level training and processes for for SMBs, small to mid-sized businesses. We have live training, we have live virtual training. We do consulting, we do projects, we build playbooks, we build onboarding programs. If it has to do with salespeople, we can help you. And if there's any questions, you can come to our site, salesgravy.com, and chat with somebody on chat, or you can hit me up directly, brad@salesgravy.com. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. My LinkedIn profile has my phone number at the top. It's my actual real phone number that I have on Do Not Disturb right now. It's that to call me. And if I'm not talking to people like you or training or in front of people, I'll answer my phone. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast today, and I appreciate you letting me tell you a little bit about what we do.
Awesome. Jeff, any closing thoughts with you?
Nothing too important, other than I want to say that it's not a world that I'm just going to tell you this joke because it's something that really resonates with me. But the opposite I don't even know that this is a joke, but the opposite of artificial intelligence is natural stupidity. So that's a great place to leave it, and that's something that that really resonates with me because well, I'm not going to get into those details, but yeah, thanks a lot for being here, Brad. It was great insights, and I know that our listeners love to hear from you based on your last visit. So so thank you, Steve.
Yeah,
As
and
always.
we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. And as always, you can find our podcast on all the streaming channels. You can find it on our YouTube channel. If you want more information about Innovia, obviously our website, innovia.com, where we list all our training and all the things we have coming up in the near future. And Brad, once again, thank you for coming. And this podcast is over.